Hey, you ever wondered how to be a better leader at work? Well, you know what? We're going to talk through that. When we can live life on our terms, on a holistic level, taking into account not just our business lives, but also our health, all of our relationships, from friends, family, our partners, the world changes. So when it comes to being a better leader at work, the first thing is, dude, miss, holy smokes, I gotta congratulate you for even typing it in and wondering how. Self-awareness alone right there, that is a huge start, and it's really, really valuable. So when it comes to leadership, there's gazillion books. There are all sorts of seminars and workshops and everything under the sun that you can do. But the reality is it's pretty simple. Less is more in this case. When it comes to how can I become a better leader at work? How do I become a better leader and manager of my people? Well, the first thing is you have to have certain awareness for yourself. What is the behaviors you're modeling? If you're sitting there smoking a cigarette going, yeah, kid, I just caught you smoking. You shouldn't be smoking. It's not going to go over very well. So when it starts initially, the first point is you need to understand and be clear on who you are. What are your values? What are the values of the organization? And are they in alignment with who you are? If they're not, people are going to sense it. So the next step is creating some sort of simple but clear structure so that everybody in the organization knows who's accountable for what. As you go through and create clarity on that, that's going to make things easier and easier for people. So if you're the senior owner or on the board or director or senior leader of your team, the number one obligation is going to be having a clear understanding and vision of where you're going. What does amazing look like? Where do we want to be? How do we know we're successful? How are you measuring success? How do we know when we got there? And then over-communicating that. When everybody on your team is crystal clear on what success looks like, halfway there. The second half then is making sure that everybody in their accountability structure is really, really clear on how what they do contributes to that success and how are they measuring it. How do they know where they're getting and how are we going to do that even better? How do they know I'm successful here or I'm not successful? The reality is most managers seem to think that their employees are clairvoyant and they get pissed off when they're like, well, he didn't do what he was supposed to. It's like, do they know? A lot of times no. Or I told them once. Well, unfortunately, you got to tell people 7 times. You've got to over communicate it. But first off, let's be clear on where our vision is. Now, here's a little trick, and this is a little stereotypical. Unfortunately, it's true. For most of the millennials and Zs, I would argue that they're the hardest working generation we've had, ever. If they're crystal clear on why they're doing what they're doing and they buy into it. And that comes to the leader being clear on creating that vision of who we are, where we're going, how we're getting there. If they don't buy into the vision, you can throw money at the younger kids and they'll just bounce out. They could care less. The idea that you're going to suck it up for 30 years, kid, and then you'll be a partner? No, they won't suck it up for 30 days. But if you're crystal clear on the vision and they buy into the vision, they'll bust their hump helping you achieve it. Now that second piece then is being really, really clear on how are you contributing to this success and making sure that they understand that. And then clearly identifying what are the tools, the time, the resources, the training that they need to be successful. And then how is it we're measuring this? How are we measuring the success and how are we tracking it so that both they know and we know that everybody's on track, everybody's doing what they're supposed to. So when you start to do this, we get to lean way back on Jim Collins when he talks about the right people in the right seats, talking about sitting in the bus. Well, the right people are those people who share our values. Like, man, I get this. I love this. I'm buying in. I know who we are. I know where I'm going. And the right seat means that I'm sitting in this seat and I do it better than anybody else. I am a rock star at this and I know what I'm supposed to do. Give it to me. I want it. I'm going to go hit the bricks and I got this. I'm going to take this to the next level and we're going to be successful. Two biggest things. I was able to study entrepreneurial strategy at Harvard Business School. And the two biggest things that we learn for when companies really hit the hockey stick for success when it comes to leadership and management is number one, when they started making decisions based off of accurate metrics. We know what success looks like, how we're tracking success on a regular basis, instead of our gut. The second is when they stopped hiring somebody or putting people in seats who could do it, who could figure it out. They were smart, they'd get it done. But they were able to start putting people into those seats who were spectacular, who had done the job 10 times before and were going to push us on how it is we needed to go and where we wanted to go. So, A, you have to be clear who you are. B, we have to come up with what is that vision of where we want to be. C, we've got to be clear on those values. D, what is the structure? And then we over-communicate the daylights out of this, making sure that we have the right people in those right seats. Those are some of the primary things to become a better leader and manager. Now, if you're looking to go deeper and you really genuinely want to help them, this is where we use a lot of the tools from Life on Your Terms, lifeon-yourterms.com. You can go there, and I've had entire leadership teams take the tool that's called the balance wheel. The balance wheel, it's free to you. It takes about 7 minutes to give you immediate results. But it's looking at you on a holistic level, all the way around, not just part of you, not just the business life. The reality is a lot of people say, hey man, yeah, well, my work-life balance sucks. No shit. Work-life balance doesn't exist anymore, but a healthy work-life integration can. And when, as a senior leader, you start treating your people and yourself as a primary asset of the organization, and you start encouraging them to look at their life on a holistic level, you start worrying about, hey, how are you sleeping? Hey, when was the last time you had a date with your spouse? Are you exercising? Are you doing these things? People are like, man, how does that have anything to do with business? Actually, I would argue it has everything to do with business these days. When you have a team that's healthier, they're well-rounded, they're sleeping better, they're going to become proactive, they're going to make better decisions, they're going to work more as a team, and it's going to increase your trust. So with this, you start looking at those tools. But ideally, this is part of one of those things that as a leader, what are the tools that you're helping? How are you helping them to become better? How are you helping them address those concerns? Because ultimately, to become a really solid leader and manager, you're going to transition from being a doer to having a really clear vision of where we're going, building an amazing team, and then working as a teacher, a facilitator, and a coach. How can you be coaching them to become the best them that they can be? When you do that, your team is going to start to get better and better and better. Now, sometimes when you do this, you know you're doing it really, really well. When people get all squirmy, like, I don't like this, I'm not happy. It's all right. When people start to choose to self-select out, it gives you the opportunity to get somebody who's better, who's the right person, who's going to be that absolute rock star for your seat. You get that person in there, everything starts to change. And when you start building these teams, you know the team gets better when they start pushing you. Patrick Lencioni likes to talk about the ideas that it comes down to its people. It's humble, hungry, and smart. Humble in that they're willing to show up. They don't have to be the person who's always the limelight. Hungry, they want it. They hate losing. I look for people who hate to lose because those are the people who are going to show up and dig in and make sure it happens. But then lastly, it's the people who are smart. They're working smarter. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're only book smart, but they're smart in ways that they're going to push their organization, and they're going to push you in ways to say, no, where do we want to be? Is this the right way to do it? How can we challenge each other? How can we push on those things? And then how as a team can we start using this? So as an example too, when you start understanding people on a holistic level on where they are from a personal perspective, it helps you to start understanding what are their goals, and then how can you help build those goals? I did Life on Your Terms with an entire leadership team one time, and we went through and we create something called a life-changing goal. Basically, this is it's similar to like the idea of a personal BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goal, according to Collins. And this person came up, and we were talking through it, and they did this with their partners, with their spouses, and we said, well, what'd you guys come up with? And he's like, looks over at the owner and he says, my wife and I would really like to move and live in Italy for at least 3 months. And he almost winced like he was going to get something thrown at him. And the owner sat back and, all right, I tell you what, we can't let that happen this year. But what if we set a goal for 3 years from now that you guys take the summer and go live in Tuscany? It means that if that's what you want to do, that means your department's going to have to be running like a top. You're going to have virtual components of this. And I hate to say this, but we're going to have to grow by 30% to get there so that we can afford it. But we do that. I'd love to be able to sponsor you to take that sabbatical time off. Holy smokes. What happened in that moment was his wife's eyes got big. He got all excited. And the reality is that it allowed them both to start saying, holy smokes, we are going to be able to go to that whole next level. And it was a pretty beautiful thing. So when you start thinking about these things, when you start looking at it, think about what are the ways that you can become a better manager. Love to hear any comments in there. If you like this, please hit like. Love to have you watch some more of the shows on this channel. Hopefully you get a little bit more from it. Keep smiling.